Dr. Shafiyev, many thanks indeed for receiving us in your office. I can only imagine how busy you are. There was a press conference yesterday at the Center of Analysis of International Relations, and you were in Tbilisi earlier, and you've been traveling extensively. So my first question, in a nutshell, what are your main takeaways from 2022 in the context of Azerbaijani-Armenian peace process?
Well, the year began quite promising. Azerbaijan submitted the key elements of the future peace treaty, and those 5 points which constitutes the core of the possible treaty text are in full correspondence with international law. It's about mutual recognition of territorial integrity, non-use of force for the territorial gains, and opening of the transportation links and delimitation. And we received, we should highlight that, positive response from the Armenian side. However, the developments after April, I would say, became a bit worrisome, and by the end of the year, unfortunately, we came to the deadlock in the negotiation process. And the problem began when some radicals within the Armenian society, we began protesting against the possible peace treaty. However, those protests was not wide scale, so we continued our dialogue. We had 3 trilateral meetings on April 6th, on May 22nd, and August 31st. So there was some dynamic between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The latest meeting was in Prague in October. It was not trilateral, but 4-party meeting. The France joined, but that was a kind of exclusion because Azerbaijan allowed President Macron to take part because of his personal request. What happened after that, unfortunately, we see as attempts to derail peace process. Armenia put forward the demand to turn trilateral format into 4-lateral format, which was not agreed upon. And it was not the foundation of the platform, and I would like to remind that the first meeting happened on 21st December 2021. And Azerbaijan definitely, in the view of the whole development in France, anti-Azerbaijani resolutions, the activity of the French government against Azerbaijan at international fora. So we cannot accept France as a, impartial broker. That's the one thing. The second thing which we see as a derailment of the peace process is attempt to put back the question of Karabakh at the same time to postpone the discussion. So that's kind of paradox. So that basically proposal came from Russia. And especially during the fall, my assessment that it was quite negative implication from the Russian activities, not only between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but also in Karabakh region, because we've seen the emergence of the Russian oligarch of Armenian origin, Ruben Vardanyan. He became so-called state minister. So that's definitely, again, it's my personal assessment. He was sent from Moscow and once he arrived to Karabakh, he basically, because between the central authorities and in Baku and Karabakh Armenians, we began sort of dialogue. But Ruben Vardanyan put an end to this dialogue. And then the third element, basically the bottom line of Armenian kind of trajectory from acceptance of 5-point proposal to the end of the year. That's the third problem. Armenia demands from Azerbaijan unconditionally to recognize Armenia's territorial integrity. Any way view some of the military operations which happened this year in September and earlier in 2021 as intrusion on Armenian territory. In the meantime, Armenia continued to occupy 8 enclaves, Azerbaijani enclaves, occupied in 91. At the same time, in various forms, Armenia trying to promote so-called independence of Karabakh and cessation of Karabakh from Azerbaijan. So basically, Armenia says, accept my territorial integrity, but with regard to yours, Azerbaijanis, our position will be ambiguous. They, on one hand, saying that the Armenia accepted Azerbaijan's territorial integrity in 1991 through Almaty Declaration. But when Armenian government, Armenian leadership was questioned whether it means that they accept Karabakh as a part of Azerbaijan, they began saying, no, it's different matter. So I think with that attitude, we won't reach peace and we won't sign peace agreement. That's, I think, the major takeaway from 2022 in terms of the Armenian-Azerbaijan relationship.
Thank you very much. I'll get back to the peace treaty negotiations. I'd just like to talk about the currently ongoing eco-protest on the Lachin-Khankandi Road. And it's organized by Azerbaijani environmentalists, eco-activists, different civil society organizations. I've read your article, which was published in the National Interest, wherein you articulated the historical context, the importance of Lachin, the former Lachin corridor, and also you explained the Armenian theory of humanitarian disaster. We understand that the concerns there are primarily based on ecological concerns emanating from the illegal exploitation of Azerbaijan's natural resources. But there are also massive concerns about the misuse of the Lachin Road in contravention of its humanitarian regime. Given all of these things, where do you think this protest is going to lead in the interim?
You see, we need indeed to highlight the historical context, because the Lachin was the first region outside of former Nagorno-Karabakh autonomy which Armenia occupied in May 92. And that was the essential road for military supply. And we look what happened later, the Armenian side. They launched another attack against and occupied another big region next to Lachin-Kalbajar, between Karabakh and Armenia, creating this kind of sort of massive, I wouldn't call it even breach, because it's not even road. It's 2 big regions, the size of even the small European countries. So that was the goal, to have basically unification. That's the goal of Armenian nationalists declared in 1987-88, Miatsum, unification of Nagorno-Karabakh with Armenia. So Lachin Road, indeed, it is Miatsum Road. It's that's the military target. And this current standoff on the blockade indeed worries Armenian side, because they can lose this sort of the free way, the free passage in terms of military supply, in terms of the extraction of resources, and from the resources we're getting money, etc. So I think that's the essential problem of the standoff on the Lachin Road. And I think the Azerbaijan side, in certain form, should establish the controlling mechanism on the road. That's the target, that's the goal. If that goal won't be met, then the Azerbaijan side, and nobody can ensure that this road won't be used for the military purposes.
The peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia remains elusive. Do you believe it could be signed in 2023? And if so, what that peace treaty is going to entail? Because we understand that there are separate tracks of peace negotiations. Delimitation and demarcation is a separate track, peace treaty negotiations constitutes a separate track. So when it is signed, what would it entail? How exhaustive this peace treaty is going to be?
We might return, we'll see how free will be developing. I think several geopolitical factors will be also affecting. But I believe, and I would like to believe, the Armenian leadership will realize that they have no future, no political, no security, no economic future without peace with neighbors, specifically Azerbaijan. And if they really care about Armenian people, if the diaspora cares, which we don't see unfortunately, because the Armenian population is shrinking, that's the fact. And while we are speaking about Great Armenia, about the enlargement, about some historical context, about some, the targets, to 5 times increase GDP or whatever, it won't be possible without indeed durable peace and cooperation among South Caucasian countries with the neighbors, including Turkey. So we'll see how it develops. They might come back, Armenian side, to the track of diplomacy, to the peace treaty. Now, again, you mentioned about delimitation, and there are some other issues about transportation. The core fundamental platform is the peace treaty. You cannot have delimitation without the recognition of each other's territorial integrity. That's never happened anywhere. So first you have to recognize your neighbor's territorial integrity and then to make delimitation. What Armenians sometimes trying to do, let's have the border defined, but Karabakh, well, that's the different matter. No, it won't happen. I think, also my personal view, Almaty Declaration, reference to Almaty Declaration is not sufficient, because in the future Armenians will try to interpret differently Almaty Declaration. We already see that. Besides, within the Armenian national legislature, there is certain provisions which refer to Soviet law, Soviet times, when the Armenian Soviet parliament adopted a legal decision to unite with Nagorno-Karabakh. It's the 1st December 1989. It's the illegal decision because it was in contravention of the Soviet laws, and it was nullified, abolished by the Soviet law. But still, it's in the Armenian constitution, in the preamble of the constitutions, which says there's the reference to Declaration of Independence, so it's several references. And one of the second Armenian president, Kacharyan, was elected, because he was from Karabakh, elected, and the Supreme Court of Armenia made a decision that they accept him as an Armenian citizen because of this reference. So we cannot have peace treaty with just one reference to Almaty Declaration. The reference to the UN Charter is important because I would like also mention that Prague summit we had this document of Almaty, but I think it should be clear, explicit renouncement of any territorial claims and full recognition of the Azerbaijan sovereignty over Karabakh. So that's the core. After that, we can speak and discuss the limitation and some other matters.
Talking about the general geopolitical situation, I remember that in Tbilisi, when you were giving a presentation, you identified key spoilers amongst international actors, and you paid a special attention to Russia, which is not interested in long-term solution. If we remember what Vladimir Putin said in Valdai, he said that if you want to accept this way, I don't think it's in your interest, but it's up to you. So what could make Russia change its present position in order to ensure that it does no longer act in this fashion?
You know, I always argued to my Russian colleagues, they believe, some of the Russian policymakers, and they are influential, and this is what we see now in Russian policy, that through the this conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, through Karabakh issue, they can control Armenia and Azerbaijan. We can influence them and make their geopolitical choices along with the Russian interest. First of all, Azerbaijan always considered and considering Russian certain interest, taking into account that so there is no kind of bilateral problem between Azerbaijan and Russia. There is only one spoiler, that's the Russian attitude towards the Karabakh, trying to use. We signed the declaration on allied friendship and where Russia pledged to recognize Azerbaijan's territorial integrity and vice versa. That's an essential document for two countries' relationship. But what we see in the actions, Russian actions around Karabakh, indeed, is in contravention to that document. What can change this attitude? What can change with the mindset that, yeah, Karabakh, the conflict indeed, as you know, the divide and rule concept. You see already Russia is losing influence in both countries, not only in Azerbaijan but also in Armenia. Many Russian pundits speak about growing Turkish influence in the South Caucasus. But why? Because Azerbaijan feels insecure towards, with regard to this kind of claims, territorial claims. For us, it's our territorial integrity is red line, and Azerbaijan steadily and patiently working towards the full restoration of full control. So we ended Armenian occupation. Now there is this issue of Karabakh, with temporarily deployed Russian peacekeepers. But sooner or later, we will have full administrative control over this territory. It would be better if the Russians will come to terms, and I think through peace and cooperation, through economic interaction, Russia can have their own economic and political interests in the South Caucasus, rather through this conflict management, which, as we see trajectory of the Russian influence, as we see trajectory of the Russian image, it's going down and down.
And also would like to talk about the EU's efforts. We know that there have been 4 trilateral meetings from 2021 December onwards, and they have been very positive. But there's also an issue regarding this EU civilian mission, which was deployed in Armenia for 2 months, and now they want to establish a new mission. We understand that initial agreement was achieved in Prague on the 6th of October, but its mandate was later enlarged on the 17th of October. The formula was that it will be stationed on Armenian territory, but it will be monitoring the situation along the border. So my question is that, given that this particular arrangement, I'm talking about new arrangement, is not agreed with Baku, but its purpose is still to monitor the situation along the interstate border, how consequential it could actually be?
You know, what we see, the actions from the European Union, unfortunately, it's protect Armenian interest. And Armenian, not just the defensive interest, but all these years Armenia was on Azerbaijan's territory, the occupation. European Union never sent any mission, including in July 2020, when the clashes happened in Tovuz, not in Karabakh, also on the border. And now we can say, and international many experts say, that the Tovuz clashes in July 2020 was caused by the Armenian side. And even Armenia boasted that, we won Tovuz battle. That was the words of Prime Minister Pashinyan before the Second Karabakh War. So there is very negative perception about EU intentions in the South Caucasus. We accept the EU Council's President Charles Michel mediation. That's a different matter. We understand that the EU can play important role in the South Caucasus, but this mission on Armenia is exert pressure on Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan agreed in October to work with the EU mission, but it's on the Armenian side. Whether we will be working with this mission after the renewal, I don't know, and I'm not sure.
And Iran, also an important actor, of course. The general feeling is that Iran is not able to adjust to the conclusions, the consequences emanating from the Second Karabakh War, because the region's geopolitics has changed. Do you think they will come to terms with the realities?
It looks like, yes, as you observed, the victory of Azerbaijan, even though they formally congratulated the actions of this government which came to power in summer 2021, is utterly anti-Azerbaijani. They trying to exert pressure on Azerbaijan, military exercises, which was never conducted when the Azerbaijan territory was under occupation near the border of Armenian and Azerbaijani border. So, but Azerbaijan also exhibited its stance. We have support of our allies, first of all Turkey. We conducted our exercise. So the language of pressure is not going to work. So I think what is happening the last 1 month, we see that the Iranian desire to reduce tension. However, what is alarming, the whole narrative, we watch, we monitor Iranian media, it remains very aggressive against Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Shafiyev. I'm most grateful to you. I know you're very busy. I hope that next year we'll have many conversations and we'll discuss some new things, some new developments.
Maybe peace.
Hopefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you.